Welcome to Education Reform. I'm your host, Joe Emanuel. We all know that end-of-course assessments are not most students' favorite part about school. Honestly, most teachers don't enjoy them either. For such a widespread implementation in our public schools, standardized tests seem to get a lot of criticism. This prompted me to think, are they really as bad as they seem? Are people just complaining to complain? I should go ahead and mention now that I am slightly biased against standardized testing. I do not think that is an accurate measure of what a student's abilities are, and the fact that Standard 6 was around in North Carolina my first year of teaching made me pretty nervous. For those of you unfamiliar with North Carolina's standards for teacher evaluation, Standard 6 regarded teacher effectiveness, which was measured by standardized test scores. Let's just say that my first experience with this was negative. Although all of my students passed their final, and all of them passed my class, I was ranked ineffective because only 70% of my students had achieved mastery. Of course, being a first-year teacher, that doused my spirits for the profession. I knew deep down that I was effective. I'd seen so much growth in my students, and that growth didn't show on their test scores. This began to fuel my research. Was there something I was missing out on? I worked long hours to create innovative lessons and activities for my students that would engage them with the content and would hopefully keep them entertained for the hour and a half that I had them each day. Although I knew that my students had learned so much, I still felt like a complete failure because I could not be considered effective. I began looking for educational journal articles speaking on standardized testing and books published on the subject. I looked to famed curriculum philosophers and educational experts. I had long and thoughtful conversations with our testing coordinator and our curriculum specialists at the school I work at. I participated in lengthy discussions in my curriculum development course at Appalachian State University. Once I gathered, compiled, read, and analyzed all of my sources, I created a few talking points on the pros and cons of standardized testing that I would like to share with you. First, allow me to mention some of the pros. First and foremost, they allow for accountability of professional teachers. Accountability is good. It allows for schools to ensure that all of our students will be educated to a high standard and warns administrators when they have a teacher that isn't there for the students and is a warm body in the room while the students are not learning. Evaluation is an important part of any curriculum model, and being able to evaluate the educators to ensure learning is happening is good. Second, they allow for some feedback on what can be improved. Unfortunately, most of the time the only test teachers give students, as far as standardized testing goes, occurs at the end of the year and can't be used to improve their teaching. However, the scores can allow the next teacher to understand what can be improved or what topics students need remediation in. According to my curriculum specialist at school, a new study was conducted in North Carolina this school year in 5th grade math and 6th grade English Language Arts called the North Carolina Proof of Concept Study, which uses interim assessments to inform instruction and to help predict scores on future tests. This is a good direction to take standardized testing. Lastly, they are a cost-effective and efficient way to judge accountability, mastery, and teacher effectiveness compared to other means, such as essays, projects, and portfolios. Teachers can give a final exam that can be graded by a computer and have results back in as little as a few hours, usually all in one work day. Now then, allow me to address some of the many cons of standardized testing. First of all, testing in such a manner demotivates our students. From page 157 and Nichols and Berliner's Collateral Damage, How High-Stakes Testing Corrupts America's Schools. Kids are under such stress with the raising of the standards that it hasn't been recognized that's what's causing their problems in school. We have kids who can't learn because they are so stressed out. Children in 4th grade are panic-stricken because they're going to take this big test, and they know it's high-stakes testing. Parents are telling them, and teachers are telling them. Another section on motivation from Jones and Hargrove's The Unintended Consequences of High-Stakes Testing on page 82. Teachers found that students were so focused on the high-stakes test that they tuned out if they knew that what was being discussed in class was not going to be on the test. These students were clearly not interested in the subject matter itself, rather, they were more concerned with the extrinsic reward of passing the test. From page 144 of More Than a Score, edited by Jesse Hagopian, which contains a speech called 518-455-4767 by Amber Kudla, written when she was named valedictorian. We are students, not statistics, and these tests should have no effect on how we are taught. and they are affecting how we are taught. We all have far greater potential, but we are taught how to be average. These are a few of the profound quotes I could find on this subject. I actually asked my own students to tell me what they thought of high-stakes testing. While most of them thought they were a necessary part of school, they also longed for a way that made it more personal. Most of them felt like they were nothing more than a number to their administrators and to their teachers. As Ken Robinson stated in his RSA talk on changing education paradigms in 2010,
schools are still pretty much organised on factory lines, ringing bells, separate facilities, specialised into separate subjects. We still educate children by batches.
Standardization of our students takes away an important part of their personal identity and strips it down to a date of manufacture and a score associated with their academic worth. From Sean Cornely's The Tyranny of the Curriculum at TEDx Eastside Prep.
I couldn't wait to possibly miss out on school. In fact, there's a website called Snow Day Calculator, if you haven't been there. It calculates the probability based on machine learning that there will be a snow day based on the forecast for your area. That's how much people like snow days. Now think about that. It's ha ha ha, funny, funny, funny. Let's all laugh about kids not liking school, but seriously, kids not liking school. Like, that's a problem.
Kids don't want to come into school. It's fairly obvious at this point, but I can't help to think that high-stakes standardized testing has something to do with it. Second, high-stakes standardized testing demoralizes teachers. I can back this with personal experience, and I'm sure that my colleagues in education have all felt the strain. From Nichols and Berliner's Collateral Damage on page 153, we hear a statement from a concerned principal. "I'm not worried because I'm leaving this job. I'm tired of being humiliated. We work hard here. The faculty is dedicated and gives its all." On page 154, these tests and all of this pressure to make kids do well on the tests, it's an insult. It's saying we aren't a profession and we can't be trusted to do our jobs. So high pressure tactics are necessary to make us behave. They're turning us into bad teachers, taking away every bit of pride. Some consequences are a little more tragic, like the suicide of Principal Betty Robinson, detailed on page 156 of Collateral Damage, and the suicide of Rigoberta Ruelas, detailed in the preface of More Than a Score on page 8, who was publicly ranked as one of the less effective teachers according to the Los Angeles Times based on test scores. While high-stakes testing may have not caused these deaths directly, they definitely had a role in the increased stress and anxiety. The entire chapter entitled Who Will Teach? Testing in the Teaching Profession from the Unintended Consequences of High-Stakes Testing by Jones, and Hargrove contains numerous reasons why teachers leave the profession, and contains numerous accounts of teachers being disillusioned by testing, and left many questioning how long they wanted to stay in the profession. While we're on the topic of demoralizing teachers and students, high-stakes standardized testing leads to teaching to the test. The lack of authentic assessments discourages collaboration and discourages differentiation. When teachers are monetized based on their test scores, there's so much competition fostered that collaboration just cannot happen. Teachers are forced to teach to the test so that their students can pass the high-stakes test, and that they will be ranked effective. I've been told multiple times by fellow teachers to just spend the last week of class drilling test questions. What a lame way to spend class.
We have to recognise that most great learning happens in groups, that collaboration is the stuff of growth. If we atomise people and separate them and judge them separately, we form a kind of disjunction between them and their natural learning environment.
As Ken Robinson states, the way we are standardizing our children is decreasing the amount of effective collaboration that can happen, because in most cases in school, collaborating is cheating. The same thing happens on standardized tests. As Ken Robinson later states, collaboration is the stuff of growth. We are educating kids to be good at memorization of trivia, not at application of their knowledge. Teachers are also losing their autonomy. From page 154 of Collateral Damage, scripted learning programs take up most of the day, and the rest of the day is lost to pre-testing and testing. There is no room for creating original lessons. New teachers are graduating college with great ideas to implement in their classroom and a hope for changing lives for the better, only to have their dreams shattered when they have to teach scripted lessons to make sure every child, regardless of individuality, can take the same test, like little robots coming through the factories. Having high-stakes standardized testing also encourages schools to actually cheat. Like the examples noted on page 36 of Collateral Damage, weak students moved to the library to watch movies while the strong took the tests, teachers wander in classrooms pointing out wrong answers, counselors erasing stray marks, and suspending academically weak students. These are just a few of the different types of cheating that have been performed not by students, but by adults working for the school system. When there are so many different ways to cheat, how can we still say that standardized tests are a reliable indicator of student worth and growth? How can we still use these as the only indicator? High-stakes testing also puts our low-performing students at a disadvantage, not because they aren't smart, but because environments created by high-stakes testing discourage bringing up their scores while encouraging giving up on those students. From Collateral Damage, page 58. When a low-performing child walks into a classroom, instead of being seen as a challenge or as an opportunity for improvement, they're seen as a liability. I remember sitting in the teacher workroom at my school and hearing such talks. "Oh, you've got Johnny. I'm sorry about that. Because of him, my scores plummeted last semester. He just needs to leave if he doesn't want to be here. He's a lost cause." And finally, high-stakes testing puts our English language learners at a disadvantage. They are expected to take a test completely in English when they themselves are speaking it as a second language. And even when they get a translated exam, the information that they learned on the exam is primarily in English. An example of this from Kate Menken's English Learners Left Behind, Standardized Testing as Language Policy, on pages 88 and 89, is a question about photosynthesis, which contains very complex language translated into Spanish, Haitian Creole, and Chinese. The point made is that even though the student may know the English words for the process of photosynthesis, there's a pretty good chance that they do not know the words for the process in their home language from being educated in the United States. That's just one of the many issues English language learners face with these high-stakes tests. Added stress from the fact that many of these tests determine if they graduate high school and can move on into a career. This is just a brief list of all the issues at hand here, and the need for reform is clear. We need to pull the high stakes out of standardized testing. The ways to do that are fairly clear. We need to balance it out with other forms of assessments, such as projects, portfolios, exhibitions, essays, and speeches, to name a few. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Whether you agree with me or not, I would love to chat with you about this topic. Feel free to use the contact form on educationreformpodcast.weebly.com to keep in touch. This is Joe Emanuel. Have a nice day.